So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Richard. I'm one of the co-founders of Gotoco China and of Edu-venture, which we're really excited to launch tonight. It's fun to see a lot of names of past Gotocoers in the chat, in the attendees. But for those that don't know Gotoco, we offer students funded and free summer camp opportunities all over China. So last summer we had 550 students from UK, US, Canada, Europe join us to earn TEFL certificates, so teaching English as a foreign language certificates, and just join fun summer camps and explore China in the summer and have a fun time in Yangshuo, which is our base, which is stunning karst mountains in South China near the Vietnamese border at the end. This year, obviously, that can't go ahead as normal with coronavirus, which is very upsetting, but we've been thinking over the last few months how we can still achieve some of our same kind of social impact goals. And one of the key things with Gotoco is we really enjoy inspiring people to kind of step out of their comfort zone, see the world from a different perspective, meet different interesting people, and kind of maybe reassess or reaffirm their own life plans and think creatively about where they want to go after uni or after they return from China. And one thing I always get a lot when I meet people either in Yangshuo at the end of their time in China or when going around universities in the autumn for fairs, a lot of people always ask me, Gotocoers are always asking, how can they kind of capitalize on their time in China? So maybe they're really enthused about going into social enterprises or teaching or doing something a bit different to their career, not going down a corporate route, and often getting asked, like, how did we set up Gotoco? How did we do things? How does it all work? And we've been wanting to find a way to kind of get great resources on that together, because it's something which a lot of there just isn't great information on out there about how to start your own thing or how to go and travel the world and run a business at the same time. So that's kind of the idea which has driven Edu-venture, and it's been great working with Isla, who's our interviewer today, to launch Edu-venture, and it really wouldn't have happened without her. So thank you, Isla. And this is the first in the webinar series of it, which we're very excited about, introducing people who've had very fascinating, interesting, inspiring careers across a range of industries over the coming weeks, but starting today with kind of environment, sustainability. And we're very, very pleased that Alex and Mel have joined us for this and will be sharing their stories and insights on sustainability careers. So just before I hand over to Isla, Alex and Mel to actually do the main part of the webinar while you're all here, just to say that there's the Q&A section. I'm sure you've all been on many webinars over the last few months, so you don't need telling, but if you have any questions, whack those in the Q&A box, and any general chat, you can message me specifically if there's any technical issues or anything, and I'm here to help. Just one thing on the Q&A is that you can upvote people's questions. So if you have a similar question, it'd be better to do that than ask it again, because it'd be more likely to get asked. And you can comment on questions as well if you just wanted to add something to one that already exists. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Isla to kick us off with the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Isla. I'm a current Exeter University undergraduate and I study English and Korean. I was lucky enough to go on a Gotoco program with Richard last year, and that was how I really got involved in everything to do with Edu-venture, and now I'm setting up the society at Exeter University. And if you guys are interested, you can check out on the website how to set up your own Edu-venture society at your university. So I'm going to hand over to Alex first, if you'd love to introduce yourself, what you currently do, and any of your current projects, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks so much, Isla. Thanks, Richard, for inviting us today. My name's Alex. I am the founder of a company called Zero Waste Mindset, which is a sustainability events company. I'm also the co-director of an organisation called Zero Waste London, which is a community organisation really promoting zero waste, sustainability, providing a platform for everything to do with sustainability and zero waste in London and further afield. I've also recently set up another smaller organisation called Drawdown UK, which is more really just a promotion community around an American initiative called Project Drawdown, which I'll probably mention a couple of times during this session. And then hot off the press, because my business was events, I've had to wind that down. So this week I've just been given been offered a job, and I've accepted the job to be head of sales for a company called Pale Green Dot, and they're a waste management and food company that supply produce, meat, dairy, vegetables to the restaurant industry. So I'm starting that position next Monday. So that's a brand new venture as well. Zero Waste Mindset will still be going on alongside in the background, but I'll be focusing my efforts in my new job now. So that's me. And yeah, I'll hand over to Mel.
Amazing. Wow, I feel like congratulations is in order to everyone here for launching all these really exciting things. Gotoco sounds excellent, so does Edu-venture, and I'm really excited to hear more about that, hopefully afterwards maybe. So my name is Mel, and I am the CEO and the founder of a company called Zero Waste Goods. And alongside that, I'm also a consultant, and I do various projects consulting for other brands. But Zero Waste Goods is kind of in a position where it's evolving at the moment. It started off as an events company. I ran the first Zero Waste Christmas market, possibly in the world, I think, at the year before last in 2018. And that business then evolved to include a kind of community for small sustainable startups across the UK, where we'd run networking and small events to help educate them to kind of scale their business sustainably. We ran 4 more events, so Christmas markets are our forte, but we do sustainable markets across the UK now as well. And finally, we are now building something called a Zero Waste Award, so looking at data and the analytics and the sustainability inside companies, as well as their ethics, the intersectional elements that they're looking at, like diversity and supply chains, and basically creating a way where we can hold those businesses to account and encourage them to be more regenerative, not just zero waste. So we're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit beyond zero waste and outgrowing our boots in that sense at this time. But yeah, I've been involved in a huge number of different projects, speaking arrangements, working with big companies like TK Maxx, Hubbub, Lush, on consultancy projects. So yeah, it's been a little bit of everything, I think. I hope that answers the question.
It does. So, it sounds amazing. I know it's very exciting for a lot of students, because we really love to hear from you guys exactly what you're up to right now. But I think from our perspective, we'd love to know where you guys started. So like, what did you study at uni, and straight out of uni, did you go straight into this, or where did you end up after university? So Mel, do you want to start off?
So I graduated from Exeter.
Yeah.
God, back in 2011, and I spent that first summer kind of doing odd jobs as a waitress, actually, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd studied both psychology and sports science, so found there were kind of 2 routes open to me. Should I go into something which is sports psychology, and kind of combine the 2 together and move forward that way? So I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I hadn't taken a gap year before university, because I thought if I did, I wouldn't finish. So actually my very first job at university was working as a waitress at a French restaurant, which I'm sure all of you might have done that already, or it might be something you're considering just to fund you through the festivals during year 1 out of university. But the first real job, I guess, was actually I went to do a ski season, because I love nature, I love people. I don't think I was ready quite yet to have a serious paycheck, to be honest, because everyone knows seasonaires don't really come away with anything. But it was the first experience that I had in sales. I was one of the resort reps, so I was selling insurance, I was selling skis, boots, helicopters, horse rides, sleigh rides, taking people skiing. Didn't have to do an ounce of cleaning. Definitely recommend that if you're thinking about it. Go for the rep job, not the cleaning, anything like that. So yeah, it was all around the environment. I loved being outside. I guess that was probably where the first inklings of my enjoyment and my appreciation for nature really started. And that's when I realized I could work in nature, I think. But it's certainly taken me a very different route to where I am today. But that was my very first job or 2, I think.
Wow. Yeah, Alex, what did you get up to at uni?
Yeah, I went to uni in Nottingham, and I studied Russian at university. It was my main degree, was Russian.
Wow.
Pretty random, yeah. I'm from Devon originally, near Exeter actually, and I went to school in Torquay, and there was one teacher who taught French, but he also taught Russian. So I did it for A-level and GCSE. But then I did my gap year in Russia and decided to go to university and study it there too. So out of university, my first job was working for a media agency, and it was an amazing job. We got sent to different countries for 4 months at a time. We lived in the country. So I got sent, because of my Russian, to Ukraine and then to Kazakhstan. And then I went to Africa, Tanzania, and Nigeria as well. But yeah, there was no real sustainability in that. I just did that because of, I wanted to use my Russian. That was my main kind of focus. So I enjoyed travel, and I just wanted to try and, use my time out of university to try and explore. And so initially I worked in travel for many years in a few different roles. But then my transition into sustainability came around about 6 years ago. I really started to look at, well, what is my passion? I knew I had an interest somewhere in this area, but I decided to look at what made me angry. So I started to think, what makes me angry? And when I was younger, I really got angry when I saw people dropping litter. So I thought, what's that about? And when I looked a bit closer at it, I actually realized what really made me frustrated was when people spoil things for others. And then I came across the zero waste movement. And I just felt, wow, this is what I've been looking for. This is exactly what I've been looking for. So from there, my journey started. And it's led to, the different activities and events and organizations I'm involved in now.
Wow, that sounds great. I love how you both sort of left uni and went traveling around and sort of found what you were interested in. That's really cool. So you would say then that you've really built some great skills before you got into the industry? Are there any top skills that you'd recommend that students focus on now if they're still at uni or they're just leaving uni? Alex, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think there's probably 4 main things for me that I think have served me well and developed over the years. But I think first is developing your kind of mindset and your strength and kind of resilience around your relationship with yourself. And I did this amazing course almost 12 years ago now called Landmark. It's called Landmark Worldwide these days, but the first course is the Landmark Forum. Maybe some people have heard of it, but for me, that really was one of those impactful things I ever did. It was great. It was a self-development course, but it helped me remove a lot of limiting beliefs, develop a relationship with myself, with others, and just cleared a lot of kind of things that hold me back out the way. So I think mindset was the first thing. Then sales really it's only something I've really appreciated in the last year or so running a business, but I wish I'd got into sales and started to think about sales a lot earlier, because it has a bit of a bad image for you being, you think of sales, you think of a kind of sleazy car salesman, but sales really is the bedrock for everything. We're selling all the time. We're trying to convince people to do or buy into our opinions and maybe just, do things, fulfill requests. You probably had several sales conversations today with friends, family, trying to convince them, about certain things, maybe where you want to go for the weekend. So understanding and training in sales, I wish I'd done a lot earlier, but now I've started to do that. It's really, really supported me. So there's a great guy called Grant Cardone, who I've done a lot of training through. So that's the second part. I think the other thing that made a big difference to me was doing things that scare me. I went through a period about 5 years ago. I decided to start trying out doing things that scared me, like just talking to people on buses, going to meetups where I didn't know anybody else. But just the more I did that kind of scared me, it became, the more I did it, the less confronting and sort of less of a big deal it became. Also maybe talking in front of an audience, doing presentations. And I think that was the last thing I'd say, speaking and presenting skills. I think the more situations you can put yourself into, even if it's, a webinar like this, forcing yourself to talk in front of people, because also you can see in front of an audience the feedback. Normally in a live situation, you see the feedback of people's faces and how what you're saying is landing, which I think is very useful rather than just a one-on-one conversation we have. So I think those 4 things: mindset, sales, things that scare you or confront you, and then speaking and presenting skills. They're definitely things that I've developed over the years.
Oh, thank you so much, Alex. Do you have any little pearls of wisdom to add to that, Mel? Any other things that you really, really enjoyed learning? I think have been useful now?
Big question. I think from my experience, after my ski season, I went into a corporate job. It was super corporate. I did telesales, where you have the headphone and
you
have to get over 50 calls a day. They record it on a big screen in front of the entire office, which is, one giant floor full of people all on the phone. I'm sure if any of you have done it, you know what it's like. Before kind of leaving that and joining the startup world, I joined my first startup when I was 25 and stayed there for about 3 years. And I have to echo Alex with that. Sales is hands down one of the most important things that I've learned, and I hated, not to put anyone off, but I absolutely hated my time as a telesales specialist, because they would make you stand up, they'd pull away your chair and say, everyone stand up until you make a sale. And you had to make a sale in order to be allowed to sit down. And that's an example of a really toxic corporate culture, which not every business does. In fact, most of them hopefully do not. But it just, the pressure there to deliver revenue, that was exclusively the number one target, was revenue. Whereas what I think Alex is saying is sales is more about how do you have a conversation with somebody where you can provide them with value. That's really what you're looking to do, is when you leave university, when you get your first job, you're looking to say to someone, I have value and this is what I can do. And here's what I need in return. It's a value exchange when you get employment. It's not somebody just hiring you and paying you. You're giving them your time. They're paying you to take your time away. So it's very important that you also are able to articulate what it is that you need from your manager, your boss, your environment, and get the most out of that for yourself. When it comes to the environment and sustainability, there is an assumption along with all of this that you need to be a specialist. Sustainability is, I used to think wind turbines and solar panels and growing organic food. I had absolutely no idea I could work in sustainability without a degree, without any prior experience. But I managed to do that in the last 2.5 years of my working career. So very recently, compared to Alex, it sounds like his epiphany came at least 5-6 years ago. So I think having the ability to keep your ambitions broad is really important, because who knows where you could end up, and try not to fixate or concern yourself too much with the first thing that you get, because it will just be a stepping stone, part of the story that you end up on. So I think also just being really organized, it might be a thing for me, but having the ability to organize your life and your work and your workflow is super valuable, especially in a startup company or a smaller business even. There's just so much going on, and you have to be able to prioritize your workflow. And I think that was something that I learned in one of my first jobs. Otherwise, grit. Yeah, having grit. So you've all gone through university. There were times, I'm sure, when you thought, what is this? Is it going to be worth it when you're up at 3 a.m. and your exam's at 7 a.m. And you're still studying, trying to cram? I don't know if you're probably not that type. You're probably getting a sound 7 hours before your exams. But having grit and determination, and that's something you already have. You'll just build on that as you move forward, I think, throughout your career. But yeah.
Amazing. It's really exciting to see and to listen to you guys, how you didn't, because I think, like you said, Mel, a lot of us feel that if we don't have a degree in sustainability, how do we suddenly segue into it, even if we have a passion for it? So it's really exciting to hear that you guys have kind of done all these different things and then found it more recently, and you're still really excited and really passionate about it. So when you guys decide, when you realize, yes, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I want to do, I want to start my own business and I want to get involved in sustainability, what were the first 3 things that you did to sort of to start? Because I think a lot of students think, oh, I'd love to start my own business, or I'd love to start a project like this, but we don't even know where to start. So Alex, where did you start?
Yeah, I think where I started, the first step wasn't to run my own business. That was much further down the line. I think it was identifying the passion, like we discussed, but then the way I really started, I was working in travel, had a full-time job, but I discovered the zero waste movement, and there was a lady who started a very small meetup group called Zero Waste London Life, I think it's called. And she started off by just running little meetups in her flat in West London, where sometimes I'll be the only person who come along, and she would teach us how to make zero waste toothpaste or zero waste kitchen products. But then she was actually from Chile, this lady called Maria, and she decided her and her husband to go back to Chile to bring up their family up. So there was another girl called Delia who had been to maybe 1 or 2 events. We'd met a couple of times. We said to Maria, look, we love this group. We think it's really important. Can we take it over and carry it on? So we took over this group and we then started to run different events. We started just doing socials, sitting in pubs, talking about sustainability. We know other people and we grew that group to what is now the biggest zero waste community in the country. We've got over almost 2,500 members. But what was great about that is that, as Mel said, we didn't have any qualifications. We simply, by becoming the kind of organisers of the meetup group, we positioned ourselves as having credibility, even though, we were nobody. We had no more knowledge than anybody else, initially. But then we started to just learn. Delia and I, we started to, read lots of books, listen to podcasts, go to different events. And it's the way I think about it is, if you're reading a book, if you start to read a book and you get to the end of the first chapter, I could then tell you either about what happens in that first chapter. So compared to you, because you haven't read the book yet, I'm a kind of authority comparatively on the first chapter. And then you read another chapter, and then you're maybe 2 chapters ahead. But it's the same with sustainability. I started to read a book, let's call it Sustainability, and I got to the end of the first chapter. Then I could tell people about what's in the first chapter. So I know a bit more about sustainability than the person who hasn't started reading the book at all. And then the more and more I read, the more I know, and the more of a kind of authority I become, but only comparatively. But I only need to be a chapter ahead. You don't need to be this expert or have loads and loads of knowledge to be credible, and I think that's, people get scared that they've got to do loads of qualifications and be this expert before they can start going and talking about it. I think sharing anything, I just love learning about new sustainability techniques and technologies and just sharing with people about them. So I think that's the thing for me. And then from that, growing the Zero Waste London group, we met lots of people. And then from that, I then got a job working, again, not running my business yet. I then got a job in sustainability. I worked for the North London Waste Authority, which is like the local authority for the 7 North London boroughs. And I was a waste prevention officer for them. But because I'd been doing in my spare time Zero Waste London, this group, it was great. I could tell, the employees or my boss when I went for an interview that I've been running this Zero Waste community. And that was the experience I had, even though I'd never actually worked in the sector. Then I got a job, and again, that was quite a prestigious organisation. And then during that time working there, and I was only there for 9 months, I then, made some different contacts. And then when I left to start my own business, I could actually so I used to work for the North London Waste Authority. So again, it gave me more credibility to when I was talking to people in different avenues and meetings and stuff around sustainability with my business by that point. So, I hope that answers the question, got a roundabout way.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from though, because obviously you started and sort of slowly built up until you started your own business, which is really cool. But it's very exciting to hear about your advice on, like, you can do it. You don't have to know every single thing about the subject. You can just really have a passion and get involved. So Mel, where did you start? Like, what were the first steps that you took to get more involved?
So there's the startup that I worked at was called Escape the City. And just as a preface to what my answer will be, and Escape the City, if you haven't heard of it, deal or specialize in career change. They help people who have been bankers or lawyers or marketers or any career under the sun change career. So we built an entire curriculum, a school where people could come and go on courses and learn how to do this. So the questions you're asking now about how do I get involved in an industry? What if I don't have experience? These are things that aren't just unique to university graduates. And it's brilliant that you're asking these questions now, because the tools and the strategies that you'll learn today can be applied to your career for the rest of your life. And one thing we used to say at Escape the City is just to be wary of the word passion in some ways, because passion just isolates this one thing. I have to find my passion. Whereas there's only 20% of adults in the UK can define one passion. People often have many passions. And the word passion itself actually means to suffer for. What are you willing to suffer for in order to have your passion, which is remarkable. But people if you don't know what your passion is, don't worry, you will find it. And the way that you find it is by doing what Alex has done, and by extension, kind of similar to my story is that you test your way forward. You find and create opportunities for yourself in order to get data, to learn a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you're interested in, a little bit about what skills you have, and a little bit more about the industry that you're stepping into, because it's okay to be a beginner. Everyone in that industry was at some point. So where I started, like I said, I did psychology and sports science. I worked in a startup that dealt with recruitment and career change. And then 6 months after I left that, there was me launching a zero waste Christmas market. And the journey to get there was kind of a strange one, but I had been interested in the topic of sustainability generally, but I actually, I don't know if I have enough time to tell the pig story, but basically I became aware of things and how they flowed into my life and where they went to when they left. And that got me curious about what is it made of? What are the materials? And if you're interested, there's an amazing book called Cradle to Cradle. I don't know if you've heard of that before, Isla.
I haven't, but it's going on my reading list. So
really, really good book. And it talks about all of this. Like, what does circularity mean? How do materials end up designed in a way that we throw them away afterwards and we can't reuse them? It makes everything seem bonkers. But this book basically inspired me to start looking for brands that were circular. Truly circular, and I struggled to find them, but I stumbled upon the zero waste movement in the process, and Alex was actually one of the people that was instrumental to my launching the zero waste Christmas market, because I located him online. I thought, oh, here's this meetup group, I'm going to email the organizer because he's got credibility, like you said, and I'm going to invite him to go for a coffee, and he said yes. And I went with my idea of the zero waste Christmas market, which basically came about because I'm annoyed that I can't buy circular products. I don't know where they live. I found some cool brands and it's nearly Christmas. And I just put all of them together and thought, well, what if I did a zero waste Christmas market? I'd only ever run one event before in my entire life. And by that point, yeah, a little bit. But I went to Alex and I said to him, like, is this crazy? Who do you know? Can you help? What can I do? What am I missing? And he just shared everything with me, and that's when I realized that the zero waste community was one that I really wanted to be part of, because everyone was just so willing to share and really believed in this mission of eradicating useless plastic, useless design, old hierarchies essentially, and redesigning a community that we're all proud of. I guess that's like the mega mission of at least how I interpret zero waste. But yeah, all I did was leverage the network that I had, came up with an idea that I felt inspired by. And I told myself, if I can get 5 people to say yes to this, if I can reach out to 5 brands and say to them, will you pay me £100? It was actually, I think I was going to charge £200 for a stall. And the first person said, you're crazy, that's a lot. And I was like, oh, okay, I learned that lesson. So I said, if I can get 5 people to say yes to me and pay me some money, then I'll run it, then I'll do it. And I had about 7 yeses in the first week. And that's where the sales comes in. That's where the communication comes in. And from there, it just sort of snowballed into a national extravaganza, really. It kind of definitely got away from me at that point. But yeah, it was amazing drawing the dots back. But at the time, I wasn't thinking I'm going to make my debut into sustainability. I just thought, it's annoying that I can't buy Christmas presents. I feel good about. My family have said the same. And wouldn't it be great if there was a place where everyone could do that? That was literally all I thought. And then as soon as you start on that path, ask questions, get noticed, provide value, talk about what you're doing, everything else unfolds.
That's amazing. So when you first started, you sort of started to get the ball rolling and everything, was there any sort of roadblock that you initially hit and thought like, oh, big challenge? Like, do you have any advice on those first few challenges, or are there any challenges that you particularly associate with the industry? I know that raising awareness is probably one of the bigger ones. Obviously, like, some people just don't take the cause as seriously as you'd like them to. So yeah, do you have any, I guess, advice for those first challenges you faced, and what were the first challenges that you faced in your business? That's quite a big question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where to answer that from. Have you got anything that comes to mind, Mel?
So many, that's the issue.
Okay, fine.
A big pile.
I'm like, half the time I think, was I walking up the stairs with purpose or like falling down them slowly?
Yeah.
That is the entrepreneurial journey, I have to say. It is very much up and down and up and down. I remember one of the most awful moments, two of the most awful moments, during this Christmas market. So in London, I had to go and find a venue, and all of this stuff is new to me. I had to do an operations plan. I had to like find vehicle schedules. I had to get insurance. I had to do marketing, social media, create a brand, do a website, do the sales, invoicing. What the hell is an invoice? Do I need a company? Do I have to limit? What is that? Bank account? All the questions, none of the answers. And the biggest mistake I made was giving myself 10 weeks to do it all in. So yeah, I mean, there were many ups and downs, and I think the biggest roadblock is going to be yourself. It is fighting that mental battle to say, this is worth it. This is going to work out. And even if it doesn't, and I'm going to fail publicly on a huge scale, it's still finding the value in that and finding a way that you can still win regardless. What have I learned? What connections have I made? What is my real intention behind this for my personal growth? You know, am I doing this because I really care about it? Then for me, that was enough to say, you can keep going. So when the floor plan didn't work out last minute, and it turned out I had to like boot people out of the festival because I'd miscalculated. When the lady showed up the day before to the venue and told me, actually, I'm going to need a generator. This is diesel generator at an eco event because there's a chance that the lights are going to switch off halfway through. When it went out in the press, and about twice as many people showed up, and I couldn't let half the people in because there wasn't enough space. And then it started raining. You know, all these things happened on the first event. And this wasn't even a business at that point. It was a project. It was something that I wanted to do because it didn't exist in the world. I saw a need, I felt a need, and I thought this might be one way to answer it. And they say if you're not embarrassed by your V1 of whatever it is you're doing, then you've done it wrong. And I have to say to Alex, I'm like, we can't talk about year one because it was just quite embarrassing, really, looking at where I've come today at the first one, because yeah, those poor people, I had to run outside handing out chocolate bars, just saying, please forgive me, I'm so sorry, you can't come in. And they're like, we've traveled from Wales. I was like, oh God, what do I do? But yeah, there'll be many a moment like that. So I think having your own compass for why you're doing what you're doing makes the journey a lot easier.
I can't really think of I mean, there's been lots of challenges along the way. I've definitely had doubt. I think challenges have been doubts around, but it goes back to the knowledge of sustainability. I mean, when I was working for the North London Waste Authority, one of the things, my jobs as a waste prevention officer, I had to go and give presentations to community groups about recycling and zero waste. Sorry, not zero waste, about food waste. And I remember standing up in front of sometimes quite hostile audiences. And they were hostile because they actually had complaints about their recycling wasn't being taken away or their food waste wasn't being collected properly. But none of the local council ever came to speak to them. So I was there from the North London Waste Authority, which was not the local council, but it was the closest thing I had to like a local council representative. So they would like give me their tough questions. And that was hard. And they would ask me questions, you know, especially when I just started, I didn't know the answer to. So I guess it was just the self-belief and, but also just being able to, you know, handle those situations calmly and not taking it too personally. I think, and then with my business, I think the challenges I really faced were ones I created myself, because I think when you're running a business, you're looking for opportunities all the time. And especially when you're in your own business, you've got the flexibility to actually just go in whatever direction you want and pivot quite quickly. And I'll give you an example. So my events business, we worked with companies. So we went into companies and we ran workshops to do with zero waste. We did like a zero waste beauty workshop. We showed people how to make zero waste beauty products. And we'd go into an office and then the employees would come and do this workshop with one of my colleagues who would run it. And I did most of the sales and business development, but I walked into one company one day and I started talking to them about our events, and I realized they were very, very corporate, and I realized they weren't going to be interested in our sustainability events. And we only really had 5 sustainability events on the books at that point. So I said, well, can I come back and do a proper sales meeting? I'll show you what we do. So we scheduled that, and I went away and I thought, well, what are they going to be interested in? I want to start talking to this company because they might not be interested in sustainability straight away, but build a relationship and get in there. So I just Googled corporate events, and I found mindfulness workshops and self-defense workshops. So I just added them into my events portfolio and went back for the sales meeting. And what did the guy go for? He went for the self-defense workshops and the mindfulness workshops. So we booked the dates, and then I had to go and find instructors. And so it's just sort of like throwing your cap over the wall. And imagine you've got a big wall in front, you throw your hat over the wall, and then you've got to try and go and get your hat back. You've got no idea how you're going to do it, but you just sort of commit, say yes, and then work it out later. But that was, again, it was a self-inflicted challenge. I didn't have to do that, but I decided to do that because I saw the opportunity. So I think that was, and I had other situations like that, which were definitely challenges. But yeah, it was exciting.
I love that analogy of just throwing your hat and having to go like grab it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's amazing though. You never know where those things are going to take you, do you?
Sure.
So I know a lot of students as well who wonder about funding and how you afford to start a business. So when you guys started out with your own projects, did you have another job alongside? Was it more of sort of a side project? And then did you manage to kind of move it over until that was more of a main source of income? Or did you get investments? Like, where did you start with the whole funding sort of situation? Do you want to start, Alex?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as I mentioned, I was doing my Zero Waste London meetup group on the side in my spare time, but then when I started my business, I decided to start my business because I came across an opportunity. So I went through my job with the North London Waste Authority. They had done some events with a co-working space. So co-working space, for those who don't know, is basically companies who have offices. And if you run your own company, you can go and work, maybe use a desk or use some rooms in this building instead of renting your own office and having to pay for it and organise the electricity and the security. It's all set up. You just got to go and put your computers in there and work, and you can bring your colleagues in. They got coffee bars and everything like that. So I sat down with this lady who was in charge of a co-working space company, and she was telling me how I was just there to tell her about Zero Waste London. But she said, we want to engage the people who come and use our offices around sustainability, and we don't have the capacity in terms of staff right now to do that. So I don't know if she was hinting, there was a job there, but I didn't really want to come and work for them. So I thought, well, look, there's an opportunity here. So I decided to start my business off the back of that, because I already had lots of people I knew who did different businesses around sustainability who I thought could run the workshops for me. So I just started the business at that point, and I made my first booking with that co-working space company. But to fund it, I actually didn't have any investment. I had, a few savings, not much at all. So I actually got a job working in a local restaurant, just a couple of shifts the weekends, just so that if my business didn't work out, I just have a job I could, maybe do more hours with. So that's really how I paid for it. But I just want to tell you a very quick story about the restaurant job, because one, it made me really appreciate money, because I had to work, when you work in a restaurant, it's bloody hard work. You clean dishes and it's long hours. And I would make, for one event I would run in a company, it would probably have a week's worth or, 5-hour shifts in the restaurant. So, it really made me appreciate the work I was doing in my business in the background. And I didn't want to work in the restaurant. So it made me work harder on my business. And the last thing about the restaurant is the manager there. I got chatting to him about sustainability over the time I was there. And, they had like these metal containers where they put food in, and they had cling film over the top of it to seal it. So I just kept sending him little, to the WhatsApp group we were in for our shift rota, little videos about sustainability in restaurants and other little, I mentioned to him what I was working on. And then one day he came in and said, Alex, I found all these metal lids for these containers we've got down in the basement. I brought them out, and we're going to now use the lids instead of the cling film. And he'd done that, not because I told him to do or suggested it. It's just he was a bit inspired by hopefully the passion and the conversations we had. But that's one of my proudest achievements, the kind of legacy I'm going to leave at that restaurant from our sustainability. So I think you can do that in any company. You can go into any company. You don't have to be working sustainability. You can just look for what would make a difference around sustainability, start talking to the right people about it, find people who are passionate about it, and do that. And sorry, I know this is not the finance question you were asking, but
it's great.
But yeah, that's how I kind of bootstrapped it initially.
Yeah, that was great. It's really interesting. I think the point you made about the restaurant, students can relate. We've all had that job we did not really want to do to finance the studies. So definitely very motivating to have that going on the side. What about you, Mel? How did you start off with funding and everything?
Well, it's funny because I didn't realize I was running a business until last year. It took me a whole year to sort of realize that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Partly because of denial, I guess. I just kept imagining projects. I can create my own wealth. I can create my own projects. The stress of running like a proper business and all that kind of stuff, it was a bit overwhelming at the time. But I was freelance, so I was made redundant from Escape the City around May 2018, did some freelance jobs and had enough of a buffer to say, okay, well, I'm going to spend the next 10 weeks putting on this event towards the tail end of the year, because my partner and I had spent that year traveling America and house sitting. So we didn't have a fixed address. We didn't have any of these things that you would normally need for a job. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to give myself space to do this for 10 weeks. And the first event I ran, I lost a little bit of money. I lost like £600. So that was a learning curve. And then the next year I ran another 5 events and we generated over £65,000 in revenue. So it all kind of can scale up really, really quickly, but equally our overheads were quite high. And my work last year was seasonal. So it was all in one part of the year, Christmas, but you have to wait a whole year before Christmas comes back around again. And that isn't a sustainable revenue model if you're looking to pay yourself a salary every month. So last year I definitely did get a side job, and I was working as a recruiter for a boutique headhunting firm that works with impact-based businesses. And that's a skill that I have that I can lean on whenever, which is great. And I also trained as a coach, a CTI coach. So I was training or coaching customers and clients here and there as well. So I could kind of pick up work as and when I needed. I have a friend that runs a recruitment business who allows me in and out as I kind of please now, because I can deliver value to her quite quickly, and she also doesn't have to worry about paying me national insurance or anything because I'm a contractor. So I would say if you're looking to start something and you're worried about finances, there's so many different ways you can do it. But bootstrapping is one, which is what I've done. Right now I am looking at investments. So we're doing pitch decks and business plans and things like that, and kind of going the full startup classic investment route now, but only after we've proved concept and had customers and generated revenue. We've got a valuable business already. But yeah, just de-risk your finances if that's what you're concerned about. There's absolutely no harm or shame in having something on the side, because an entrepreneurial journey is a long one. And if you are worrying about paying your bills and running your business, that's a real challenge to give you the headspace that you need to really move forward. But you can look at things that changing your location. You can look at downsizing your living. The great thing about a zero waste lifestyle, I think, is you actually save quite a bit of money if you can avoid buying new clothes. You go secondhand stores, you refill stuff. Like, it can actually be quite a really nice frugal way to live. It doesn't sound very, very sexy, obviously, when I put it that way, but actually it kind of all works together. And you can also look at what skills do you have? What could you do for friends that you could get paid for? I've got a girlfriend who is on furlough at the moment, and she is basically going through all her stuff and sticking it on eBay, and anything that she doesn't want or was left over. And she's got like barbecues and lawnmowers and things like that. If you went round to your parents' house or your friend's house and you offered to do this for them, I've got a friend who's a professional declutterer. Like, she turned that into her business. There's so many ways that you can make money without it being constrained to, this is my startup has to make money, or this is my career has to make me all the money. Your life doesn't have to be lived in those boxes anymore. That's the 21st century career revolution. You don't have to work in an office anymore. You can be remote. You don't have to get a job straight out of university. You can travel. You can become I don't like it really particularly, depending on where you look, but like, you could potentially become a YouTube star or like an influencer on Instagram, or you can even go into politics. Like, there's so many different things that you can do that will generate you money, create value, and therefore get you a better job as and when you need one moving forward. So yeah, I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. So interesting, so exciting. I'm really loving hearing all of you guys' experience. I know a lot of people really are. We've had a lovely comment from someone saying, just here to say this is massively helpful so far. Both of your stories, the way you tackle this bigger than any of us problem, is so inspiring to hear. So,
that's great, thank you.
Yeah, everyone here is really enjoying all of your advice. So one question I would love to know is, what advice would you have for students now? So if you could go back and talk to 20-year-old you who's just sort of graduated, if you could sort of go back, would you go straight into trying to do sustainability on the side? Is there anything that you'd really advise that we did if we really wanted to get straight into the business?
Well, Mel, I'll go first of mate, but I'd love to hear what I'm going to say. I'm interested to hear your perspective on this as well, because I was thinking about this. I was thinking, what would I do now if I was coming out of university at this time, and I wanted to get into sustainability? It was clear I wanted to get into sustainability. And I think I'll just talk about jobs generally, and then I'll get into sustainability more specifically. But I think, first of all, I just want to, I think it's just really worth saying, and I'm not trying to be like a scaremonger, but I think it's a very tough time to be graduating right now, given what's going on in the world. And I say that only because I think it's really worth being straight about it. And so you're dealing with reality. I think there's a lot of people who've obviously now leaving companies at the moment. So the competition for jobs potentially is tough, but then it's always tough. There's always people looking for jobs. So it's no different. And there are lots of companies hiring as well. But that's the other thing. I think you can obviously go for grad jobs. You can go for internships. You can go for companies and jobs that are being advertised. Now, the job I've just got, I have not applied for, in the time I've been looking for a job in the last month, I've not applied for one job advert that I saw online. All of the jobs that I applied for and got to different stages of have been through just speculative emails that I've sent to companies who I was interested in. I came across were quite small, and I just sent them an email saying, "Are you looking for any support?" I was looking for a sales job specifically, but reaching out to them specifically, and a lot of them I got best responses from them rather than applying for jobs, which these days probably you've got hundreds of people applying for. So I think I just want to encourage people to look and try and think a bit more creatively about how to look for jobs. I don't think you just need to go down the traditional path. I think the other thing is, getting into sustainability, you don't have to go into sustainability jobs per se. I think the example of going to a restaurant or any kind of job and then starting to develop your sustainability knowledge on the side, and then start looking for opportunities about how you can make that business, whatever you're doing, more sustainable, trying to add value. I think that's an interesting path to go down as well. And again, you might speak to some people who, you talk to them about sustainability, you can just see their eyes glaze over and they're not interested. So then it's trying to maybe start trying to reframe sustainability into other areas where they might be interested. Maybe how it could save them money. Again, if they start to replace single-use items in their business with reusable items, it's going to take a while and a certain amount of use before those will offset all the single-use items. But then you're actually going to be saving a lot of money. So maybe start talking to them in terms of revenue, how you can generate revenue for them. And I think the other thing to look at is, maybe starting to try and create, if you get into a company, find allies with you, maybe start Go Green teams. They're like groups of employees who all care about sustainability. They're also called sustainability committees. Maybe you could start a group of people in a company you're already working in, who are also interested and passionate about it. And you can then start talking about what you can do as a company, and then go and start talking to different management people about what you can do. So there's different ways. Maybe just focusing on the most direct and obvious route these days is not always the best thing to do. Try and be creative with your ideas and about approaching the challenge you've got.
Okay, thank you so much. Have you got anything to add, Mel?
I do. I think for right now is such an interesting time to be graduating. I think it is both challenging, but also hugely, the opportunity you have right now is insane. Think about where we are with the climate. In the last year, we've seen revolutions across the country where London was locked down because people were protesting against the Extinction Rebellion. We've never seen that before. When I was graduating, people it wasn't really on the agenda, or it was in pockets where I wasn't really involved. Whereas right now, it's our social narrative on a day-to-day basis is this discussion. So I would say, if you're approaching this and thinking, okay, well, I've just graduated or I'm going to graduate, sustainability, not sure what it means, don't have a technical degree, what do I do? Then I would say, take a step back and just take a breath for a minute, because there is so much opportunity out there. We already know that there's going to be a £2 billion fund that's called Kickstart, which is specifically designed to help young people into green jobs. The green job movement is going to explode, and a lot of the jobs that you will end up having haven't even been created yet. That's how fast things are going to move. So I would say focus on creating value and finding skills that you would like to hone, because even if you decide you don't want to go down the technical route, there's still hundreds of jobs and opportunities that you can create for yourself regardless. So I'd say if you wanted to start exploring your way forward, use your voice, like blog, write, create a website, listen to podcasts, create one of your own, dig into this as an exploration of what your future potential could look like, rather than thinking of it like a job. You can also ask yourself questions like, if money was no object, what would I spend my time doing? Or what would a world I'd be proud to live in really look like? And where do I see myself feeling excited to contribute to? Questions like that. One thing that I think Alex mentioned that I would kind of also hack a little bit further is say, use Instagram a lot, and instead of LinkedIn, find the brands that you love and get excited about, and just message them and say, absolutely love what you're doing, love to have a chat. I just want to learn more about your story, how you got to where you are, or potentially offer your support or whatever it might be, because connections and people are opportunities. People provide opportunities, and the more people you can connect with will really open doors for you. But you can definitely do it 100%. Like, yeah. I'm so excited, and the fact that you're all here talking about this makes me feel excited that we've got this wave of incredibly smart, very bright students coming up that want to solve the world's biggest challenges and aren't satisfied with a corporate 9-to-5. I mean, that is like music to my ears. So yeah, never believe that you can't do something, and don't always believe what old people tell you. If they tell you that you can't do it, then yeah, delete that person from the panels is my advice. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. So refreshing. I love that. It's great. I know that your, Alex, your new project, Project Drawdown, is focused on 100 solutions to reverse global warming. So obviously that would be another good one for students to check out if they kind of want to think over some new ideas, I guess, about where they can get involved and how they can explore like a more specific area to go into now. We've got a couple of questions that I'll just go through real quick that some people have.
No, I just mentioned something about that, Isla, quickly, just about Project Drawdown, because I think it's such a great, what you said is exactly right. What I love about Project Drawdown, just very quickly, it says 100 solutions to global warming, but I think it's a great resource. If you look at that list on the website, and I've found, and as I've been looking for jobs, I use that as a basis for my job hunt. I looked through those different solutions and started to look at companies in the UK who were working on these different solutions. And then I reached out to them. There were the electric cars is one, so I started approaching electric car companies and electric car charging companies. Starting to really develop my knowledge. It's a great knowledge development tool as well, just finding out these different terms, some of which are quite groundbreaking and not ones people aren't talking about. But also the other thing I was going to say is I started to look for people rather than look for companies to work for. I started to look for people I'd like to work for. And also you can do the Tim Ferriss approach to doing that. If you want to work for someone quite famous, rather than going to them and they'll probably have lots of people contact them, look for who they pay attention to, who are the influencers that they pay attention to. And normally it might be someone a bit more obscure who's less, inundated with emails. Contact them, get in touch with them, and then the person you're trying to get to might be paying attention. You could align yourself and position yourself next to that person, and it's a way to, get to I don't know, just make contact with people who are hard to get to normally.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to be checking that out after this, Alex. I'm really looking forward to that. So some of the questions we've had. For Alex, when you were growing your community as head of Zero Waste, what kind of approach did you find best to share your passion, raise awareness, and most importantly, expand the movement and build a following?
Yeah, great question. So our strategy was, Delia and I both had full-time jobs. So we wanted to build this, but we didn't have huge amounts of time. So we looked at we made the group basically, rather than just organizing all the events ourselves, we did a social, which is very easy to organize. You book a pub or book somewhere where you're going to host like a gathering. We had that every 2 months, and we would organise other small events like visits to a recycling facility. But then we started looking for other organisations who were organising events, and they organised good events. They just didn't have a very big following. So our strength was our numbers and our community. And we only had 500 people when we started, but we started to promote other people's events and use our platform, our meetup group. We've got a Facebook group, and we'd start to promote other people's events to be like a platform for others. But what was great, and if you ever run a meetup group, you see lots of groups that have been started and they sort of die because they do 1 or 2 events and then they either run out of time or don't get enough people coming. So the trick is to have lots of events, or at least look like you've got lots of events. And we did that by just promoting other people's. So it looked like it was a very active group. We had lots of people constantly join. But with Meetup, again, we've got 2,500 members now. When we run an event, we probably get 100 people sign up, and then we probably get 30 or 40 come. So you've got to get the numbers up, because like any event, because most of them are free, it drops off massively. But that was our strategy. It was about constant continuity, doing things that are interesting. But in terms of growing the community, the most effective was when we did actually run a couple of events ourselves. We did big panel events. Mel was one of our speakers. We did one event about a documentary screening about plastic waste, and another we did about flying, and should we be flying as regularly as we are? And that was actually very good, because we did lots of promotion on our Instagram, our Facebook, and that got over 100 people come to. So that was also very good. But that was our strategy, looking at how we can make the most use or most efficient use of our time.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And then someone else has asked, how would you sum up how zero waste helps to tackle the climate crisis? Maybe Mel would like to start with this one.
Yeah.
So for me, zero waste is a movement that encourages people to really take responsibility for the items that are coming in and out of their lives. And it is a huge issue in the sense that consumerism is not sustainable right now. If everyone were to live like we do over here in the UK, or even in any developed country, we would need nearly 3 Earths every year in order to fulfill that need. And that desire is coming both from consumer demand and also big corporations just pumping stuff out into the system without any respect for design, waste, or management, or anything like that. They just think, we're going to take this piece of the pie and deliver you this product, and then we're going to shame you because you've bought our product and now you haven't disposed of it properly. So what zero waste does is trying to disrupt that conversation between the endless cycle of consumerism and the endless pouring out of corporate like merchandise and greed and all this kind of thing, and teach people to take responsibility for their actions, teach them to take responsibility for their stuff, and to do that in a way that's progressively more and more circular. So to be a zero waster at the extreme end could look like you've got your entire waste of non-recyclables in a glass like this big, or a jar or something. That's the extreme end, and that's kind of what Instagram shows you. But it also exists on a spectrum, and the more people that understand that they can reduce their own waste, they don't need to purchase all of this stuff, that's when consumer trends start to change, and that's when government starts to pay attention, and the corporate machine has to slow down and find new ways to use materials. So for me, it's one of the starting points for us to learn to use our planet's resources properly. And it's almost a grassroots movement that's starting to permeate into businesses, thanks to work like what Alex is doing. And it will help eradicate this by teaching us to live within the planet's resource capabilities.
Amazing, thank you. Alex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just quickly, I know we're getting towards the end of the time now, so I'll be brief. I think the thing with waste is it's very much usually an afterthought. It's usually we make things, we use them, and then, oh, what are we going to do with it now? So zero waste is, if you think about emissions, obviously we know about emissions contributing to the climate crisis, but by reducing the amount, especially food, like we throw away like a third of the food we actually produce. We never gets eaten, it just gets thrown away. And that usually goes to landfill. Huge amount of emissions coming from that, and obviously the food like meat especially, there's huge amounts of emissions coming from that in the production of it during all the cattle and the huge ranches and farms where they're farmed. So I think reducing the amount of waste we produce does inadvertently reduce the amount of emissions, and thus we're helping to reduce the climate pollution as well.
Circularity.
Yeah.
Donut Economics, also really, really good book. Donut Economics by Kate Roy. Read that. If you have read it already, kudos. But yeah, that's a really, really good book. Will teach you everything you kind of need to know about how those two intersect.
Amazing. So I think we're going to probably wrap up there. Thank you so much, guys. It's been amazing. We've had some lovely feedback with people talking about how inspiring it is to hear about your stories and how exciting it is for it to seem so reachable for students, because you really have sort of brought this very scary topic for some of us down to a level where we're really excited to try and get involved. The last question I guess I would ask, that a couple of students have mentioned as well, is there any way for any of us to get involved in your current projects? And if there is, how would we do so?
Yeah, yes, there is definitely opportunity to get involved. I just want to say with one thing on this, actually, I think it's just useful, hopefully. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, back from Zero Waste London and I've, done many calls with people to sort of just try and give them advice similar to the kind of things we talked about today. I think it's just useful to, when you're reaching out to anybody for advice and about jobs, it's being conscious of their time, because I'm very happy to help people. But sometimes in the past, I've had people contact me to do interviews for, journalistic students and stuff like that. I've done the interview, sat down with them, and never heard from them again. And I don't mind, I don't take it personally, but I think if some people, they sort of take quite a lot without trying to think how it's going to be able to give back, or even the experience you're going to leave someone with. So I would say there's lots of opportunities to get involved, but I'm particularly looking for people who are going to be proactive, that don't need a lot of management, don't need a lot of time. I could say to them, look, yeah, we'd like to do X, Y, Z, and then they'd have the kind of self-drive to just run with it. So yeah, if you join Zero Waste London and you want to reach out to me, maybe through either the meetup group or reach out to me LinkedIn, there's definitely opportunities there. And again, I want to try and support people using being part of Zero Waste London or involved in Zero Waste London and Drawdown UK, which is a new organisation really, to better put it on their CV. I'd love to support people doing that as well. So there's definitely opportunities. And yeah, I'm just going to be upfront and honest. I'm going to start a new job on Monday, so my time will be limited. So if you don't hear back from me immediately, it's not because I haven't got your message or don't want to come back. Just be appreciative of that, I think.
Great. Mel, do you have anything else that anyone could get involved with you, or?
Yes, actually. So as I mentioned, Zero Waste Goods is both evolving and going in for funding at the moment. So it is looking likely that we might have either some sort of internship opportunities or work that you can do really on the side to complement whatever work you're doing at the moment.
Right.
That will be both skill dependent and dependent on exactly the roles that we need. So right now it's looking like there's things like community management. There's also a bit of social media and marketing to do. And equally, a little bit later in the year, there'll be some more operations and business related stuff. So if you are interested in finding out a little bit more and getting involved, then definitely drop me a line. Like Alex said, I'm keen to hear from you and listen to your stories. Obviously have a coaching background, have been a recruiter and all that kind of stuff too. So if you are looking for a little bit of extra like nod to some of my favorite brands, for example, I can share those with you, or look on my website. There's loads of brands on there, and that directory is being updated every day because there's just so many cool brands doing cool stuff. But yes, there are opportunities to be involved, and I'd love to hear from anybody that's curious.
Amazing. So thank you so much, Alex and Mel. It's been amazing. It's been so enjoyable interviewing you. You've both been so informative and so supportive and so passionate, just exciting to hear. So thank you so much. We will, I'm sure, be emailing some kind of feedback form around to all of you guys who've attended. So if you could feed back all of your lovely comments to these two great guests, that would be lovely, so that they know how much you've appreciated it. A very, very quick note before we wrap up in about 2 minutes. I'll just explain a little bit more of what Edu-venture is at universities, because I know a couple of students wanted to know how that works. So Edu-venture is a network of societies around the UK, and we will be expanding more and more. So you can check out our website, and if you want to set up an Edu-venture society at your university, there's a contact on the website to do so. Edu-venture is focused on careers beyond the ordinary, sort of things that when you're at university, you don't get funneled into, you're just not sure how to do. So that's part of why we set up this webinar series, to really explore those sort of niche jobs that people are really passionate about, but just don't know where to start with. So we will be running these webinars for the rest of summer up till the end of August. There'll be one once a week, and there'll be information on the Instagram and the LinkedIn about the next webinar if you guys have really enjoyed this one and want to come. But it's just an opportunity to create a community at your university of students who, you know, want to work abroad or start their own business, or, you know, in foreign media or something, just something that I think at university it can be a little bit difficult to find that first step into, because we are all guided a little bit into the corporate world. So we're just trying to bridge that gap, and Gotoco have been an amazing real push for all of that. They've had so many great ideas. They've been so excited to partner with the students, and I already know quite a few students setting some up at university, so there's some going on at Bristol and Liverpool. So keep an eye out for those. And if anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me any questions about Edu-venture or anything, that is absolutely fine. I would love to hear from you all and what you thought about today. I know I'd love some feedback so that we can get some great more conversations going on with everyone. And thank you for coming. I don't know if Richard has any more to add. Hi.
Hello. Pops up out of nowhere. Yeah, just thank you so much, Alex, Mel and Ida. That was really fascinating, inspiring. I personally found it very inspiring and moving, and lots of food for thought. So I hope everybody else listening did, or it seems like everyone did from the comments and questions. Just a quick for everybody attending, we will be writing up a blog post about this with some of the key takeaways, and we'll try and cover some of the questions that, if there are any questions we couldn't get to. So if you have anything else you'd like to ask, do just email us at team@edu-venture.org, edu-venture.org, and we'll try and collate everything and get your questions answered for you. This webinar will also be available to view after, if all's gone well with the recording, which you can never be quite sure of, but hopefully it will have, and it will be available, and we'll send that link round to everyone. But yeah, thank you so much, Alex, Mel and Isla, and I'm really looking forward to the next webinar as well. Hope to see lots of you there. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.